Hi Sagittarius, welcome to your mid-September 2019 and general tarot update. It's Raina here. So we are going to have a full moon in Pisces that is occurring on September 14th, so right around this mid-month period. And for Sag, this is the 4th house of home and family. You could be ending, your time in a certain house. Maybe you sell a house. Perhaps you are finding out something about your mom or something, or you learn something, yeah. Or insights about your childhood. That's a big one, I think. Because, we have Neptune, because I'm Sag too. We have Neptune transiting that 4th house in Pisces in its own sign. And Neptune is retrograde. And when it's retrograde, we're kind of like realizing certain things about our childhood, our past. And I can vouch for this. I mean, timing, I can't remember when Neptune went retrograde. Was it June? I can't remember. But it's funny. Time goes so quickly. It's like, I have no idea. But in any case, when Neptune is retrograde, you can really feel like some of the things that you just assumed were true were kind of like not. Maybe, especially with Sag, I think we tend to gloss over things or be like overly positive about things that might have been quite hurtful and destructive, and just realizing those things and saying, wow, that's pretty deep, that's pretty heavy. And that's good though. We need to have a reality check about things from the past, because when you idealize things, you're being in denial of them, and then it makes it harder to really make good decisions because you're not seeing things clearly. So that could certainly be the case. So shuffling the cards here. I'm using the Rider-Waite deck this month. I had to do a little card sorting outing because my 2 decks got all mixed up. I don't know if any of you have tarot decks. The Rider-Waite deck with this plaid background, which I'm always like, ugh, but I mean, there's like a Radiant Tarot, which is like the classic Pamela Coleman illustrations, but it's like real bright, and I love the background of those cards. It's like little gold stars, I think, with a dark blue background. But I really like the more muted colors with this type of deck. And I have 2 decks, and one is glossy and one is matte. And I didn't realize that until I was sorting out the cards, and they were all like kind of mixed in. And I realized I like the glossy. I don't know if you can see, it kind of shines. And it sticks in your hand better. And I think it also preserves the cards better. So just a little hint from Heloise here. Okay. Oh, I like this so far. Let's go like this. Interesting. Oops. I can't remember if the 4th house, I think that's about diet. I mean, the 6th house is health. I'm going to have to look that up. Because I was going to say with the 4th, it's funny, and it's number 4, but this is a card of rest and rejuvenation. So there may be some reason, because I was thinking of that full moon in the 4th house, if that connects with health in any way, or just This could be like you doing some kind of a retreat. It's so funny because that's what I'm going to be doing, but it's not, going to some retreat center. I'm not going to talk about that right now because it's kind of an experiment that I'm doing. But what it can be, I will tell you this. It could be something along the lines of maybe you're going to have a media fast where you're like kind of not being so active online, because swords relate to communication, and this is the Four of Swords has a real kind of reflective tone, resting tone. It could even be like the physical body that you're like, maybe if you're on the job, you're taking a kind of a medical leave or something, but it's more for the purpose of building your body back up. Like if you got burnt out and you just, maybe like adrenal gland burnout or something. I don't know. But it might just be that you are deciding to stop with a lot of external kind of communications. It's interesting. Before this, I was trying to figure out like a connection between the number 4 and the swords in this kind of retreat dynamic, if you will. And what I thought was the 4 of Swords to me is kind of like getting your thoughts in order so that so that you can really know how to proceed. Okay. I've made mention of this. We're nearing the end of 2019. We just have a few more months. And one of the things that I have noticed is that, Jupiter in our sign has been, I would say some people would say a bust. That when they look back at this year, they don't feel like they benefited from having Jupiter in their sign. And what I would say about that is that, I could totally see what you mean. And I think somebody wrote something either to me or to some other astrologer online and said, and talking about Sagittarius and saying, Jupiter magnifies things. So perhaps if you were in a place you didn't want to be, I'm talking about emotionally, for instance, that Jupiter in your sign in Sagittarius is not going to necessarily do anything positive. It might just enhance that or kind of magnify it. But in a way that is doing something positive because it forces you to look at it. And so I really think that all of us Sages and all of us people would benefit from taking a day out for yourself and bringing a notebook, going off into nature and designing your dream life and thinking, what steps do I need to take methodically to get there? Sag is so into the big picture, but we also have to kind of, sometimes we're a little bit too overly optimistic about how long things take or how we can do a certain thing. We have to be as pragmatic as possible. Actually, I personally am thinking that we're going to benefit even more from Jupiter going into Capricorn in December. Not only because Capricorn is an earth sign, and I think that with Jupiter, it gives us tangible results rather than, Sagittarius is kind of abstract. Excuse me. And so it's about the abstract mind. And it's not necessarily anything that we are bringing down into 3D reality. So the other piece of this is that Capricorn is our second house of earned income. And, you could joke and say, oh, well, Pluto is there too. So, but let me tell you something, Pluto can bring wealth in money houses. So, from what I recall. The other thing too is that Saturn is going into Aquarius, I think, is it February? Not 100% on that. But then it's going to leave that second house. And, then we have Jupiter all to ourselves there. And that'll be, well, with Pluto, of course. But I think that that's going to be wonderful, because I think that that can really tip the balance into attracting more financial blessings. In the past position, we have the star card. Now, the star card connects to Aquarius. So if this is maybe a new relationship with an Aquarius, and you feel like with the number 4, you feel like it's a solid relationship, well, there you go. But the star card is about hope restored and healing. So these two cards could be about some kind of healing, and maybe you're like taking it easy as the month has gone into the middle of September, that you decide to take a breather of sorts for your healing. But it's funny, I was reading about healing, and they were saying, like, nobody can heal us. We have to heal ourselves. And part of the healing is releasing, resistance. And sometimes we resist healing, and there are different reasons for that. And I think one of them is maybe not even feeling deserving of those of having that healing restored. So there's going to be, I think, with you, Sag, is really, with the star card, is really feeling that sense of optimism, perhaps returning to your life. Now, you might say to yourself, well, I thought the star is a past position, and it is. However, I'm recording this a little bit before the middle of the month, and so this is something that could be happening in the future if you're actually watching the first week of September. So there may be some developments that happen that allow you to embrace the idea of rest, and that you deserve to have this time for yourself. The higher message is the Ace of Swords, and this is a card of really cutting through illusion. And I love this card in this position because this is a spiritual advice, and it's like, take that time to reflect and to really get clear on what it is that you need to do, because you may have gotten burnt out, and it might be a combination of a toxic relationship combined with a stressful job, or just maybe even a job itself. But whatever it is, remember that when you're not in alignment with something, it shows up even in your body, where you just feel that sense of exhaustion, and it takes something out of you, or a bad relationship. And the Ace of Swords is like gaining clarity so that you can actually move ahead. And it is a card of victory too. It's actually a very positive card, but it's coming from strife, from some sort of strife, and you have to kind of recuperate, with the Four of Swords. What crosses you is the Six of Pentacles, and this may be something to do with resources that you feel must be distributed I was even thinking in terms of like, I mean, this could even be like an inheritance or something like that, where there was some kind of a problem and that caused stress about that, and maybe that's why you had to kind of just unplug from everybody for a while, because you really needed to clear your head. And it really caused a lot of problems. So that might be something that you still have to deal with. The other thing too is this feeling of, give and take. This may come up too with any kind of relationship issue, where with Sag, we tend to be very generous, if not financially, then with our time, with our energy. And it may be that somebody kind of wore you down, wore you out with their demands, and that's something that you are kind of trying to recuperate from, and you're seeing what they have done, but you still have this kind of a sticky issue. I actually got this card for another sign where it was kind of similar, where it's almost like there's somebody who you may be like supporting, or I don't know how this would play out in somebody's life, but feeling this sense of imbalance there, and maybe that they are dependent on you, and you are like, how can I get rid of this problem? So even with the Four of Swords, I'm thinking that perhaps it could be like separating from like a spouse or a partner, and that's how you're kind of realizing that you need to move on, but you still have this financial thing that is connecting you and the other party. What's coming in, or the advice, is the Nine of Swords. This can be a card of insomnia. I would say for some people who are trying to heal physically, this is just coming from me and my tendencies, and I'm going to talk about the computer because that's kind of like what my experiment is going to revolve around. And I'm sure a lot of you already know this about the blue light and the connection with the computer. And if you're using the computer at night, you can get a second wind, because I've experienced this so many times I can't even say, where like if I'm online, I'm using the computer and I'm like really sleepy sometimes, because I didn't get enough sleep the night before that, and I should just go to bed or something like that, and then I don't, and then it's like all of a sudden I'm not tired anymore, and there's like actually a scientific reason for that. And so it could be that you really need to like heal in a way that involves really cutting down on your technology. And with the Nine of Swords, it's a card of insomnia, and you may draw that connection between technology and insomnia, because the other piece of this is that sometimes what will happen is then you stay up too late, and then the next night you're really tired, and then maybe you do go to bed early, but then you get up in the middle of the night, that kind of thing. So there are wonderful resources online, but don't look at them late at night, where you can find out, the best thing. The best thing is to cut off the internet use early, or just the computer use, even if it's non-internet related, and then read a book before you go to bed, and for the last hour have a bedtime routine, and really stick to it. Don't, and the phone, all the electronics, maybe even put them in a different room, because you may have your burnout may be internet related, where you're just on it too much. And the Nine of Swords can be something like that. Also, in terms of what is coming in for you, you may find that you're noticing anxiety that perhaps you were kind of sublimating, and realizing what you can do with it. Because to me, the Four of Swords can even be like meditation. And really, again, I was talking about the number 4 and how it's a number associated with like order and like a foundation, if you will. And when it's talking about with swords and the mind, how you can organize your life so that your thoughts do not dominate and you know, are not your enemy. Because that's what I see with the Nine of Swords, where your mind is turning against yourself. And that's what, you know, anxiety is to me. And some people have said that their anxiety is directly connected to worry of some sort, okay? And I was noting to another sign about these flowers on the bed and the bedspread, where they say, you know, an interpretation is that they indicate that the person is worrying over nothing. They're making mountains out of molehills or something like that, which, you know, we could definitely say happens sometimes with anxiety. However, even if you're thinking too much and it's really things about that are really not going to happen, we can't, you know, when you're anxious, you really can't say to yourself, oh, that's just silly. You have to train your mind like you would do anything else. Just like you train physically to make your muscles stronger. You have to train your mental muscle by being disciplined mentally. And I think I would say like mental discipline is a big part of this month, or, you know, this portion of the month, where you're really trying to keep your thoughts working on your behalf instead of against you. And the outcome is the Moon card. Now the Moon card connects to Pisces, so there is that connection to that full moon in Pisces. But really, the Moon card is connected to intuition. And so I feel like, yeah, you know, I didn't think about this. Maybe you're even going to start a writing project and you've been doing too much nonsense online and you need to just focus on your writing. I was thinking about this for myself, but, you know, I'd like to share that with you because it might resonate with some of you. But also, just in general, some kind of spiritual practice that you start, you know, you can hone your intuition, and that can make all of your decisions easier to make. The Ace of Swords is really about cutting through illusion. And the way that you cut through illusion is about really knowing who you truly are and what kind of thoughts are constructive and what are destructive. And so I do urge you to seek mental clarity and also to nurture your creativity during this time period, Sag. I hope that you enjoyed this, and if you'd like a personal reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.